I'm Alpher.
I'm Omegar.
And we're Alpher and Omega.
And this is another episode of Alpher and Omegar's Refit Reviews, the original series episode 2, The Man Trap.
Ayo! So, as the man said, it's the Man Trap.
The Man Trap.
Now, a point about this was actually the episode that was broadcast first on September 8th, 1966. So, even though The Cage was the first pilot, which was needed to be revamped a little bit, and then Where No Man Has Gone Before was the second pilot, it was actually broadcast fourth in the production run of the show. And so, this was actually the first chance audiences had to engage with, everyone. And I think the reason that they did that was so that it was more the traditional crew that we were, familiar with, like, McCoy and Uhura's there, and the uniforms, they've got red shirts and
red
all that.
Shirts. Definitely, they're an integral part of Star Trek. Just.
Yeah.
So,
although, interestingly, we had a number of people die in this episode, non-red shirts.
Non-red shirts. There was a red shirt in a dire situation, but of course it was Uhura, and she's not going to die in the first episode, as we all know. So,
well, a note about red shirts: it's not really necessarily just the red-shirted people. It's mostly just if you see a landing party of 6 beam down, and 5 of them are the bridge crew, and then one of them is just random security officer, or random biologist, or any number of other things.
Red shirt, whatever.
Random X is probably not going to make it safely out of the episode.
No, probably
at least not as they went into the episode.
And so, cool. This episode starts out. Spock is in command of the bridge, because Kirk and McCoy have beamed down with a third member in a landing party to.
Guess what happens to him?
Yeah. So they're going to do the yearly health checkup on 2 researchers on this planet, and one of them, the female,
in 113, if memory.
Yeah, something like that, and the female down there is actually one of Bones' old flames, who's married the male, Dr. Crater, and she's Nancy Crater. Yeah, and so they show up, and they're a little early because Bones rushed them.
Which I also thought was interesting that they started with an episode wherein Bones was the one with the love interest, where Kirk wasn't the one with the love interest at all. In fact,
it's kind of funny.
So go on a little bit with the plot.
So Nancy Crater walks in. They're in it's kind of a pyramid-looking sort of.
Well, it's just an old ruin.
Ruin, I guess. From the outside, it looks like it's kind of a pyramid. But they go inside. There's all kinds of stuff in there. Nancy Crater walks in. Bones sees her, and she looks young. She looks just the way he remembers her. And then we switch, and we switch, and we see from Kirk's perspective, and very different.
Not quite. She's a little skunk dude.
Grey.
She's got it was a strange dye job of wig or whatever they put on it. It was like, stripy greyness or whatever.
It was a little strange.
Like one of those little calico cats or whatever. But anyway.
And then, of course, the third member of the crew, of the landing party there, I forget what his name is, but...
Because the first change, if you weren't really paying attention, and this was 1966 and you were on a black and white TV or not very good reception, you might have thought, oh, well, maybe I just didn't notice the grey at first. But then, the third crewman, he sees her, and she's this, young blonde
chick,
and that's...
And he tells how she looks just like this girl that he left behind
on a pleasure planet. Which is why it was an insult. So she, everyone obviously takes offense. McCoy's like,
he's like, I'm sorry, I know it's impossible. But...
Right.
Yeah, so, but it's, so they send him outside, and...
I mean, it is rather uncouth. Like, you show up on a planet and you're like, hey, you look this hole I want to do.
Just like this. Yeah.
Right?
It's... I can see how that could be a bit harsh.
Yeah.
So they send him outside, he stands outside, and then they, of course, need Professor Robert Crater to do the examination. So Nancy goes outside to go off and get Bob.
Allegedly. And so then Bob comes in and they meet him and he's like gruff and wants them to leave and wants salt. And meanwhile, we hear, "Ooh!" And they all run out and Nancy's there and she's like, he ate all the berries. And
some sort of poisonous plant.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
But
we, of course...
A Borgia plant.
We, of course, saw previously where he sees her as the blonde again, and she basically lures him off. Something suspect.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, we knew there was something suspect right from that, right from the start. But then it becomes a sinister suspect, not a ooh suspect.
He's got these little circles all over his face.
Oh yeah, like they almost look like he's been suction cooked or something like that.
Almost like suction
or like he's got ringworm or some sort of horrible disease. But anyway, so as the episode progresses and whatnot, we learn that they keep asking for salt, and then crewmen keep dying, and so then in an interesting twist, we actually get to see this, whatever it is, turn from being Nancy into being one of the ensigns that she had just killed.
Yeah.
And so, and then she goes back to report to Kirk and whatnot, and they end up beaming up with
Crewman Green. She's disguised as
Crewman Green. And so, which makes sense because she ends up having somewhat of a green tint to it. But anyway, so she goes up and then proceeds to stalk individual crew people. Like first she goes after Janice Rand,
Sulu's yeoman.
Kirk's yeoman.
Kirk's yeoman?
Yeah, I mean, when they say personal yeoman, I think it's just because she has the hots for Sulu, not because... Yeah, personal yeoman, I think, is just because she was...
I misunderstood.
Yeah, because she's Kirk's yeoman.
She had some sort of a basket thing going on.
He noticed the basket weaving in her
hair. It was very interesting.
The beehive. The basket weave beehive.
It was very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, stalks her, and then, because she has salt on her tray, and this thing needs salt. And
then he gets distracted by Uhura. Or it gets distracted by Uhura and turns into a he for the first time. So that's interesting. Yeah. Which the episode's called The Man Trap, but, apparently it could be a trap for anyone, really.
And then the only thing that really saves Uhura is that it startled when Sulu and the yeoman come out of his lab or whatever. And then he's like, bridge. Yeah. And then she's like, and she gets out of there while she has the opportunity.
Thankfully.
Because it apparently can mesmerize.
Anyway, so, interesting, what was fascinating to me in the episode? The only person in the whole episode it doesn't appear to seem to want to seduce is Kirk. When it appears to everyone else, it appears as this, fetching thing that they wouldn't want to live without. But when it appears to Kirk, it just appears as the older version of Nancy. And I wonder if that's because Kirk is such a good friend to McCoy that he wouldn't be a possibility, if he knew that was, quote-unquote Nancy. But then would try and get him later as just someone else. Or what was going on there. But I thought it was strange, given the Lothario, figure that he turns into, throughout the series, that in this instance, he is the one person who is entirely excluded from being attracted to Nancy or this creature at all.
So the kind of interestingly about that, so Kirk is kind of portrayed as this guy. He's not really lonely, right? He gets all the, accompaniment that he really desires.
I think that's all right.
So one of the things that when it's trying to seduce Uhura, it says, "You're lonely, aren't you?" It's something it kind of, and then it goes after Bones. It ends up deciding it wants Bones more than Dr. Crater because he has a deeper love.
And in the end, it ends up killing Dr. Crater. And is that because it had decided, I don't need you anymore, I've got Bones, and his feelings for Nancy are more? Because Crater specifically says that this creature needs salt.
And it needs love.
And it needs love.
Yeah, just like anything else, it needs love.
Yeah.
And then, so Spock survives an encounter with it because his blood salts are entirely different.
It's the first time we get to see that he's got green blood. Interesting,
yeah. And then, so Bones's love for Nancy is so strong that he almost refuses to believe that she is this creature that is killing things, and almost lets her kill Kirk.
Almost. Like, she's sitting there mesmerizing Kirk and suction cupping to his face. And
so she's doing it as Nancy. He's just like stunned, and he just like, no, this can't possibly be. She can't. That's not really what's happening. And then of course, Mr. Spock dodges in,
and he may not know this, but Spock, as you well know, is incredibly strong.
Incredibly strong. So he's like, "It's not Nancy. Look, could she take this? Whack, whack, whack!" And he gives her some haymakers. And she's just like, whack, whack. And he's like, could she take this if this was Nancy? And she just, bam, knocks him across the room. And he's like,
goes flying.
And the illusion is kind of broken for a moment. And she's this kind of weird sort of swamp thing-ish sort of creature with a different sort of face and these like fingers with suction cups on them. And she goes over and actually gets a latch onto Kirk. And he's screaming, ah! And Bones still doesn't even want to believe it.
And we actually get this point of view where we're following the phase where he's like, thinking, should I do this? Should I do this?
Yeah, and then he says, like, Lord, forgive me.
Well, it is revealed that this creature, the salt vampire, as it's going to be known, is the last of its kind.
And it killed Nancy Crater.
Some time ago.
And the Professor Crater has just been... like supplementing.
Well, I don't know. He's weird. Like, I don't know whether he was into her because she was the last one of a kind and, felt that way, or because he was actually into her because she was the only thing left of Nancy. But, I mean, this thing had killed Nancy.
And then, of course, this thing could become anything at all. And Kirk, of course, calls out to him. It's like, of course, like, why would you want us to stay? Why would you want us to take out of this personal paradise where she could become anything as she wanted? Yeah. Anyone in the entire universe.
The man trap.
The man trap. So. And then, of course, so it is the last of its kind. It is interesting to see. And then they, of course, end up killing it.
Yeah, well, it needed to happen.
It did, because, I mean, it was sort of vicious. It didn't actually try to really reason. Like, hey.
No, well, it was stupid. Like, it's got a whole ship. It knows it's got, access to actual salt. But it still goes after people. Like, it's just, like, you say it's not necessarily malicious, but, like, it had full access to salt. Like, Kirk and crew were transporting salt to them. They clearly had stores of salt that were massive. But it never attempted to access those stores of salt.
Right.
And if it had been a benign creature like it claimed...
Like, I'm just defending myself. Yeah. I'm just using, maybe it's just using its mechanisms that it has just to survive. No, it was being really douchey.
Stellar BS right there.
So.
Did you have any other thoughts on this one?
I mean, it was interesting to see the whole crew. In Uhura, we do get to see Uhura kind of try to engage Spock when he's on the bridge and try to get him to be more than just...
I think it might have been the one scene that they watched for the reboot and they were like, oh, hey, those two are nice together.
Yeah, those two are nice together because she does try to hit on him a little bit and try to bring him out. And she's like, oh, he's
having none of it.
He's just so boring. He just sits there and just very logical, Spock is Spock. Even when they, calls up the transporter room and teleporter room, they say,
someone
leaving 3 up, 1 dead.
Yeah.
And he's just like, all right.
And it's Kirk, McCoy, and third person. Now, maybe he knows the rules.
Maybe he doesn't know the rules. Maybe he's like, look, Uhura, this is how it goes.
You're new to this ship, darling. You need to understand how this is going to play out. It is not Kirk's Spock.
Definitely not Kirk's Spock. That was not Kirk. It's not McCoy. So he, but she totally freaks out. Like, how can you be so emotionless? And runs off. And that's, of course, when she almost gets
mesmerized by this face-sucking fire.
But yeah, so it was an interesting episode. Yeah,
what's also odd, much like the aliens from Signs, you wouldn't think that a creature made up of like 97% water would be the place you would seek out salt. But hey.
I guess that's.
Any thoughts from you, Delta? Alpher is noticeably silent on the
Yeah.
matter. So, until next time, that's this time.
Please like and subscribe, thumbs up, share, all that good stuff. For Alpher, I'm Omegar.
Ayo!